The automotive world is vast, and it has given us legendary rivalries, like Henry Ford versus Alfred Sloan of General Motors, or Enzo Ferrari facing off against Ferruccio Lamborghini. Undoubtedly, these are gripping tales of ego, engines, and pride. Yet, there was another iconic rivalry, less talked about, but just as powerful. One that began quietly in the refined parlors of British high society during the so-called Roaring Twenties. On one side, Rolls-Royce, an aristocratic visionary and a self-taught engineer, united by their obsession with handcrafted perfection and whisper-quiet luxury. On the other, Walter Owen Bentley, a dreamer forged in the crucible of the First World War, who saw speed as a form of art and engineering as his path to reach it. Although these two brands were born with radically different philosophies, for several decades they would end up under the same roof. A forced merger, an uneasy coexistence. Did you know that the founder of one ended up working for his greatest competitor? This is the true story of Bentley and Rolls-Royce, one of the most refined rivalries in the history of luxury on wheels, a saga that began over a century ago. Walter Owen Bentley, known simply as W.O. to his friends, was born in Hampstead, London in 1888. Raised in a well-off family, his first love for engineering began with steam locomotives, but his fame would come from his genius with combustion engines. During World War I, Bentley designed the BR-1 and BR-2 rotary engines, used in aircraft like the Sopwith Camel and the Sopwith Snipe, two of the Royal Air Force's most iconic fighters in the conflict. His most famous innovation? Aluminum pistons. They replaced steel and allowed engines to become lighter and more efficient. For his service, Bentley was awarded the Order of the British Empire. But once the war ended, he set his sights on a new battlefield, the open road. In 1919, he founded Bentley Motors Limited with a crystal-clear mission. In his own words, to build a good car, a fast car, the best in its class. The company's first model, the Bentley 3-liter, was a robust, elegant, and powerful machine, designed not only for the road, but for glory on the track. With 85 horsepower, it could reach speeds of 80 miles per hour. For the time, it was nothing short of astounding. Charles Rolls, on the other hand, was an aristocrat by blood. Heir to a noble Welsh family, he was one of the first Britons to pilot an airplane. But his true passion lay in precision mechanics. In 1904, he met Henry Royce, a self-taught engineer who was already building small cars in Manchester. Their partnership would prove explosive. Rolls brought capital, connections, and commercial vision. Royce brought engineering mastery and an almost obsessive attention to detail. In 1906, they founded Rolls-Royce Limited. And that same year, the legendary Silver Ghost was born, a car the press would later call the best car in the world. Silent, reliable, built with a level of craftsmanship never before seen. Their philosophy was clear. While Bentley chased adrenaline, Rolls-Royce pursued eternity. One aimed for the racetrack, the other for royal palaces. For a time, each built their empire in parallel, until history placed them on a collision course. The 1920s became Bentley's defining stage. The 24 Hours of Le Mans, established in 1923, quickly became the natural battlefield for WO's machines. Between 1924 and 1930, Bentley claimed victory 5 times. It wasn't just about engineering, it was a way of life. The so-called Bentley Boys came to define the decade, a group of young aristocrats and wealthy thrill-seekers racing for sport and living recklessly elevated the brand's prestige and aura. Owning a Bentley became a lifestyle symbol. Rolls-Royce, meanwhile, didn't race. It didn't need to. The brand already stood as a beacon of excellence and prestige. But behind the scenes, Rolls-Royce executives were growing uneasy. Bentley's rise, its presence on the circuit and its appeal among the young elite, began to overshadow Rolls-Royce's more conservative image. Bentley wasn't a threat in sales volume, but it was in brand perception. It was becoming the new symbol of modern, dynamic luxury, a name synonymous with sporting glory. But that glory came at a cost. While Bentley collected trophies, its finances began to falter. The cars were expensive to build, and the market, though distinguished, was small. In 1930, during the depths of the Great Depression, Bentley unveiled its masterpiece, the 8-liter. It was designed to directly rival the Rolls-Royce Phantom, but only 100 units were built. It was too expensive, and the world was falling apart. In 1931, Bentley Motors declared bankruptcy and entered liquidation. Walter Owen believed a financial group called British Central Equitable Trust would rescue the company, as they submitted the highest bid. But behind the name hid a familiar rival. The trust had been quietly formed by Rolls-Royce, acting through legal intermediaries to mask their identity and acquire Bentley in secret. The final blow? Walter Owen Bentley was offered a consulting role at the company that still bore his name, but without any real decision-making power. A 4-year term, no vote, no voice. That same year, the original factory in Cricklewood was shut down. The 8-liter project was canceled. Bentley would no longer race. It would now coexist under a philosophy completely opposed to its own. And its founder had to watch, powerless, as his brand, once a symbol of speed and rebellion, was reduced to a silent twin of Rolls-Royce. From 1931 to 1998, Rolls-Royce and Bentley shared the same fate. First in the city of Derby, then in Crewe, where Rolls-Royce relocated its automotive production after World War II. Post-war Bentleys were, essentially, Rolls-Royces with a different grille. The 1946 Bentley Mark V and the Rolls-Royce Silver Dawn shared the same chassis, engines, and overall design. The differences were minimal. For decades, Bentley lost its identity. Its slogan, the silent sports car, sounded ironic. There was no sport, only silence. Somehow, in 1952, Rolls-Royce showed a spark of intention to revive Bentley's spirit by unveiling the R-Type Continental, a model that recalled the brand's lost sporty soul from its independent years. It became the world's fastest 4-seater of its time, reaching 118 miles per hour, a hit among Britain and Europe's elite. Yet even with that, the company W.O. Bentley had founded still lingered in the shadow of Rolls-Royce. In 1971, Rolls-Royce was nationalized due to severe financial troubles in its aerospace division. The British government split the company into two: Rolls-Royce plc Aerospace and Rolls-Royce Motors Automotive. Bentley remained attached to the latter, and although the cars were technically brilliant, the brand's original soul continued to fade. The tides began to shift in 1980 when Rolls-Royce Motors was privatized. Vickers plc, an industrial conglomerate focused more on defense, heavy machinery, and engineering than automotive tradition, took over. But that change in leadership didn't just bring financial restructuring. It sparked something inside Bentley. For the first time in decades, a genuine attempt emerged to restore its old personality. In 1982, the Mulsanne Turbo was launched, a powerful, loud and fast sedan. It was a Bentley that roared, that surged forward, that challenged the stereotype of static luxury. It was the first serious step toward reclaiming its identity, and it worked. By 1991, the Bentley Turbo R, a more aggressive evolution of the Mulsanne, accounted for half of the group's sales. And in 1994, for the first time since its takeover in the 1930s, Bentley sold more cars than Rolls-Royce. The brand that had been born to race had finally awakened. In 1998, Vickers announced its intention to sell its automotive division. It was a financial decision, but also a symbolic one. The heart of British luxury was up for grabs, and the main bidders weren't even British. The buyer would gain two brands, one factory, a rich heritage, and a looming conflict. Since 1994, BMW had begun supplying V8 and V12 engines for Rolls-Royce and Bentley. They also provided the electrical systems, electronics, and cooling components. The relationship with the German group was stable, solid, and technical. BMW seemed like the natural heir, but then came a giant, Volkswagen. Led by Ferdinand Piëch, grandson of Ferdinand Porsche, the German group made a bold move. They offered £430 million, outbidding BMW's £340 million. On July 3, 1998, Volkswagen won the auction. But the victory came with a catch. What Volkswagen purchased was the Crew factory, all rights to Bentley, the designs of the Rolls-Royce models, the right to use the famous Greek temple-shaped grille, and of course the Spirit of Ecstasy hood ornament. So, what was the problem? The name Rolls-Royce was not included. The name wasn't owned by Vickers. It belonged to Rolls-Royce plc, the aerospace company that had remained a separate entity since the nationalization of the 1970s. BMW, with strong industrial ties, acted swiftly. They negotiated directly with Rolls-Royce plc and acquired the rights to the name and logo for just £40 million. The result was ironic and explosive. Volkswagen had the cars, but not the name. BMW had the name, but no cars. A furious Ferdinand Piëch threatened to cut off the supply of German engines still powering the Rolls-Royce models in production. But BMW responded with elegance and strategy. A transition agreement was reached. Volkswagen would be allowed to keep producing Rolls-Royce models until December 31, 2002. Then, starting January 1, 2003, BMW would gain exclusive control of the Rolls-Royce name and begin building a new legacy from scratch at a new plant in Goodwood, Sussex. Thus, British luxury was split between German hands. Bentley, under Volkswagen, would retain the historic plant and a consolidated production base. Rolls-Royce, under BMW, would start fresh, with a blank canvas, but with the world's most perfectionist badge. Bentley and Rolls-Royce were separated once more, and for the first time since 1931, Bentley could finally shine on its own. To compete in the ultra-luxury segment, Volkswagen knew Bentley needed an entirely new model. And so, in 2003, the Continental GT was born. A grand tourer with a 6.0-liter W12 engine, 552 horsepower, all-wheel drive, and a sleek yet muscular design. It went on to sell over 60,000 units in its first generation. In the medium term, it became the best-selling Bentley in history. It appeared in movies, music videos, and the garages of global celebrities. W.O. Bentley's brand had reclaimed its place as a symbol of youthful power, global success, and unapologetic luxury. Rolls-Royce, on the other hand, from its new home in Goodwood under BMW, took a different path. In 2003, it unveiled the Phantom 7, featuring a 6.75-liter V12 engine, majestic design, and meticulous craftsmanship. Every unit was customized, every detail designed to last centuries. Models like the Ghost, Wraith, Cullinan, and in 2023 the fully electric Spectre would follow. Bentley aimed at the driver, Rolls-Royce at the passenger. Today, these legendary brands no longer compete for the same audience, but they still beat with the same historical heart. Two marquees born from British brilliance refined by German engineering. One represents the roar of triumph, the other the whisper of royalty. Walter Owen Bentley passed away in 1971, never witnessing the rebirth of his name. Henry Royce died in 1933. Charles Rolls even earlier, in 1910, in a plane crash. But their philosophies, luxury, speed, and perfection, still echo across the roads of the world. And what about you? What's your take on this historic rivalry? Do you identify more with Walter Owen Bentley's sporting spirit, or perhaps with the meticulous perfection of Charles Rolls and Henry Royce? Don't forget to leave us your thoughts in the comments. And if this story caught your attention, you may want to discover how the iconic British feline, a symbol of power and prestige for decades, is now staggering toward a looming disappearance. See you in the next video.